This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Podcorn. Yes, the MMA Lock-Cast has secured its first ever sponsorship, and that's all thanks to the guys over at Podcorn. Podcorn is a marketplace that connects podcasters with amazing sponsorship opportunities that includes host reads, interview segments, topical discussions, and you have full control over how it is integrated into your podcast. There is absolutely no middlemen. So whether your prediction video gets 50 views, 150 views, 250 views, doesn't matter. Podcorn will help you find a sponsor that is right just for you. You set your own rates, and you also get to decide on which sponsors you actually work with. There is no pressure, nor do you have to worry about giving up any rights to your podcast or your brand. Podcorn is there to make sure that you are compensated for all the work that you put in. Podcorn's mission is to give you complete transparency, full control, and let you decide on when you want to monetize and how you want to do it as well. So make sure you click the link below in my description or go to podcorn.com/podcasters to sign up for your own account now and get started. Start looking for your own sponsors and start making money. Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMA LOTN. This week we're going over UFC Auckland, which is headlined by Paul Felder and hometown man Daniel the Hangman Hooker. It should be a very entertaining fight. Both guys are strike first fighters, so it should be quite intriguing to see who's able to implement their style. Not really sure if I'm going to be betting on this fight. Probably will pass, but I feel like I have a decent enough read on the main event as to why I will end up passing. Right off the top, before I actually get into this episode, I just want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Arkansas for doing what he's doing with the prediction wars or the predictor wars, whatever he's calling it. I'm killing it right now on there. I didn't really know about the competition until at least 2 events into the year. I think my man Diehard MMA actually hit me up and let me know that I'm in his division, so I checked it out, and Arkansas is putting out good content, so I got to support the man. I appreciate him putting me into that challenge as well. Secondly, make sure you guys go check out the tape index. You guys know how much work I put into that shit, how much my man Newsom puts into that stuff. So we would greatly appreciate it if you guys went out there and supported that. $4 a month. If you're gambling on fights, if you're researching fights, save your time. We got you guys covered. Everything pretty much available on one page. And we're 4 weeks ahead as well. So if you guys want to go study up on UFC 248, you're welcome. It's there. UFC Brasilia. We just put that up as well. That's the event that's headlined by Charles Oliveira and Kevin Lee. So if you want to, get on that nice and early, try to beat some of these openers when they release. Tape index is there for you. All the fights that you guys need all on one page. Everything's just a click away. All right, let's get into this episode now. So UFC Rio Rancho was the last event that we had. Unfortunate outcome. Lock of the night play hits. No qualms about that. Wish that I went a little bit deeper on that play as well. I had 3.5 units at minus 162 on Merab Dvalishvili. I thought that was a pretty easy pick. There was obviously the concern of Casey Kenny's scrambling ability, but as soon as I saw that Merab was able to win that first round, I knew I had this fight in the bag outside of any Hail Mary, flash KO or anything like that. So Merab was able to get the job done there for us. Secondly, I had 2.5 units on a parlay of Montana De La Rosa, who also was going to be a lock of the night play for me. I was thinking about going double lock of the night here. Had to pass on that and put her in a parlay with Corey Anderson, and I paid for that. She cashes, not cashes, she hits, and then Corey Anderson goes out there and gets knocked the fuck out by Jan Blachowicz, so we go minus 2.5 units there. 1.5 units as my dog of the night play at plus 112 on Yancy Medeiros versus Lando Venata under 2.5 rounds. That probably didn't go the way that I wanted it to, nor did it go for a lot of people. A lot of people were thinking that these guys were going to slug it out a little bit more, see a little bit more chaotic scenes or sequences. That didn't play out, so minus 1.5 units there. 1.75 units on Jim Miller and Skull Holtzman under 2.5 rounds at minus 108. That one whiffs as well. Thought that Skull Holtzman, whenever he cracked Jim Miller, was going to be able to, hurt him, go in for the kill and get the finish. However, Jim Miller sustains and makes it to the decision. He loses it, but unfortunately, we lose our under 2.5 as well. And then minus 0.25 units on the Hail Mary Patreon parlay, which was busted by Corey Anderson. If Corey Anderson hit, that would have been over a 5.5-ish unit swing in terms of us getting in the cash money there. But unfortunate loss there, so we end up minus 3.84 units. I believe, I thought it was supposed to be minus 4.11 units. Let me just confirm that. I don't know why my math is off. Yeah, minus 3.84 units. What am I thinking? What am I talking about? I think that was the event before. Yeah, minus 4.11. Keep hitting these negatives, and it's fucking killing me. So what we're doing for this upcoming event and moving forward now, lock of the night play, dog of the night play, that's it. Might be multiple lock of the night plays, but no more than one dog of the night play, unless I am very much pushed towards betting at least two dogs. But I'm going to try to remain as strict as possible, man. I got to get back into the winning ways, and I feel like that's the way to go. And, studying my past habits, it was, the most successful days were the ones where I was being super disciplined and super strict and just picking that one play, that max 2 plays for Lock of the Nights. So we're going to go back to that and see how it fares. And, this event coming up with on UFC Auckland, just looking at the betting odds, it's kind of forcing me to go back to that way. There's a lot of close odds throughout the card, a lot of sketchy odds throughout the card, but I feel like there are a couple fights, 2 to max 3 fights that I feel like I have a really good read on, which would make for a perfect lock of the night play. Probably only one dog of the night play. I said 3 fights. One of them is a lock of the night. 2 of them are potential dog of the nights. I've already played one dog of the night. So if you guys have checked out my bet MMA tips, since I've placed a bet, you guys will see who I'm on. And obviously I'll let you guys know who it is in this podcast. So just quick thoughts about the card overall. There's a lot of people from that Australia area, Asia a lot as well. Maki Pitolo making his return as well from Hawaii. What do we got? Zubaira, Tukhugov, Emil, Meek is finally coming back as well. That's a fan favorite that's been sitting out for a little bit now. Karolina Kovacevic probably fighting her last fight. Very tough fight against Yao Nanyan. Jimmy Crute against the returning Lord Michal Oleg-Shayjuk. Love Michal. Don't know what happened last time around against OSP, but I'll dig into that when I get there. And then obviously the main event between Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker. This is a striker's delight. I'm very, very excited to see this fight go down. Think it has plenty of potential to be fight of the year, considering how this plays out. And the fact that we get 5 rounds of it, I'm even more excited. So let's dig into this card. Let's get it going right off the bat. So first fight on the night, we got Shana Dobson against Priscila Cacheoira. Let's start off with Shana Dobson. Decent fight against Sabina Mazo. Mazo obviously showed that she was the better striker. She was the better, had the better footwork, better movement. Shana Dobson, not completely crap, if you guys want to put her out there. She's only 3-3, so she's still relatively young in her MMA career. She was on The Ultimate Fighter, lost to Roxanne Modafferi pretty much right off the bat. But, I don't mind her striking. She fights a little long. She has a good 1-2, decent leg kicks. She has decent movement, but I think that she is in a good spot here to beat a girl like Priscila Cacheoira. Not sure how Cacheoira really got into the UFC. She was kind of fed to Valentina Shevchenko right off the bat. Probably the worst, hazing you could possibly get coming into the UFC. But with Priscila Cacheoira, she's going to be eating a lot of shots here too. I think her only path to victory in this fight is like a one-shot, that's going to hurt Dobson and follow up from there. But I think that Dobson's going to be the more active fighter. She's going to be using her range a lot better. Cacheoira just doesn't have the best striking defense either. It's kind of crazy to see somebody, with the 3-3 record being a minus 200 over anybody. But I think if, there is anybody for Dobson to be that big of a favorite over, it's Priscila Cacheoira. And, I'm not going out there and making Shana Dobson a lock of the night play or anything like that, but I'm not going to bat my eye at anybody who's actually making a play on Shana Dobson. Cacheoira is just not UFC level. It's as simple as that. And Shana Dobson is close to not being UFC level either. So I think that, this is kind of a perfect fight for her to get back onto the winning track, to get a victory in the UFC. I believe, she had a victory over Ariel Beck in the Ultimate Fighter finale, but since then she's gone 0-2. this is the fight for her to make that statement. If she's not able to get past Priscila Cacheoira, she's obviously getting her walking papers. But Cacheoira probably won't, fare much longer in the UFC either, even if she gets past Shana Dobson. So my play is going to be but my pick is going to be Shana Dobson here, but to win by decision. Should be interesting to see how much Dobson's able to beat up on Cacheoira on the feet here. All right, next up we got Maki Pitolo versus who's he got? Takashi Sato. This should be a fun fight. Both guys mainly strikers. They like to throw a lot of heat. Unfortunately for Maki Pitolo with his UFC debut, he was not able to get that early finish against Callan Potter, and Callan Potter was just able to bring it to him. Mixing in the grappling, pretty much staying in Maki Pitolo's face. Callan Potter took that fight away from him. Say what you want about guys coming off the Contender Series and making their UFC debuts. That's kind of why I was a little bit skeptical about playing Maki Pitolo, or even, playing UFC debuts from the get-go. Like, it just seems like there is something that happens to these guys once they step into the octagon as to why they're not able to perform. On any given day, Maki Pitolo should have gone out there and actually finished Callan Potter and gotten the victory. However, Callan Potter, his chin holds up. He ate a lot of good shots, but then he just kept pushing the pressure, pushing forward and getting Pitolo down, grinding him out, pushing him up against the cage, and that made Pitolo very uncomfortable, and he wasn't able to get his shots off. When you're going out there and finishing pretty much all your opponents, and then you go in there against a guy with an iron chin like Callan Potter, it's going to be tough, Callan Potter did get put out by Jalin Turner in his fight before that, but this was a tough one. This was a tough one for Pitolo. And then this fight against Takashi Sato, I kind of like the inside the distance for both guys. I think they're both going to be swinging. Takashi Sato has a lot of power in his hands. He did get choked out by Bilal Muhammad last time around at UFC 242, but here he is back again in a fight that kind of is like tailor-made for both of them. They want to both go out there and show that they're finishers, and they kind of both have that style of just planting their feet and throwing heavy strikes. I don't see if there's anybody that's going to try to implement the grappling here. I think it's going to be Takashi Sato, but I truly don't see that. I think they're both going to be headhunting here. One of them is going to end up face down on the canvas. It's hard for me to say who it will be. But I'm going to have to go with Sato. I think Sato has a bunch of power that he's going to be able to land on Pitolo. And we've seen Pitolo get hit a lot by Callan Potter in the past as well, too. So it's kind of both ways. What are the odds reflecting right now? It's pretty much close to a pick 'em. Sato is at -120, so a slight favorite there. I like the favorite here. I like Takashi Sato to get it done. I think he's going to get the finish probably in round 2. But it should be fun while it lasts, Hopefully Pitolo has learned from his past mistakes and is able to pull off the victory here and not really lose all hope and faith if he's not able to put out Sato in that first round. But I truly think that this is going to be Sato's fight. He has not as heavy of a trip as Pitolo does coming from Hawaii, so that may play a factor into it. But I think that Sato still gets the victory here. All right, next up we got my dog of the night play. I got Loma Lookboonmee, +174, 1.2 units. Think that this is a great spot for her. So let's start off with her. She's fighting Angela Hill, obviously. Angela Hill taking this fight on relatively short notice once again. She just fought at UFC Raleigh, she just fought January 25th, and here she is less than a month later coming in to fight Loma Lookboonmee. So again, let's start off with Loma Lookboonmee. Thai fighter, currently on a 2-fight winning streak. She showed great, ability to deal with strength in her fight against Alexandra Albu. I'm not sure why that fight was a split because it was pretty clear cut that it should have been Loma Lookboonmee. Not sure what that other judge was seeing, but regardless, vicious Thai, like her Thai clinch is insane. Beautiful elbows, her kicks are insane. Her knees from the Thai clinch are just amazing. They're very devastating, and from the angles that they come from as well, she lifts them and then she's able to just land them perfectly on the side of her opponent's body, or just bring them straight up and land heavily there too. She's clearly doing a lot of damage to Alexandra Albu whenever they're clinching up in that position. With Angela Hill, it's going to be interesting too because I think that Angela Hill likes that position, so it might be kind of being like, who has the bigger balls here? You know what I mean? Like, obviously these women are females, but still, like, it's gonna be who has the better tie clinch, who has the better kicks and knees and elbows. Because Angela Hill, even though she's more of a volume striker, she still throws a lot of variety with the strikes too. I like Loma Lookboonmee's fight IQ in her relatively young MMA career. This is going to be her 6th fight coming into this fight against Angela Hill. But she's shown even in her Invicta fights, she knows when she should be able to mix it up. She has great sweeps, great dumps from the clinch position. She's able to trip up her opponents pretty much at will, going from knees and elbows to just tricking them to dumping them, going for perfectly timed takedowns. That's a game of hers that's really improving. She's quite young too. She's coming into this fight at 24 years of age, whereas Angela Hill is 34 now. I think Loma is going to be continuously improving. She's coming from a great Tiger Muay Thai camp. She has a lot of, her ceiling has yet to be fulfilled, in my opinion. Whereas Angela Hill, she looked great against Hannah Cifers last time around, but I truly believe that, we have seen the best of Angela Hill. She may be getting better, don't get me wrong, but I do believe that Loma is going to be able to make higher rates of progress than Angela Hill has. So another concern in this fight for Loma would be the fact that she was an atomweight when she was an Invicta. Hannah Cifers technically should have been an atomweight as well, if we're not, if we're being completely honest. But considering the fact that Loma went up against Alexandra Albu in her last fight, say what you want about Albu and her skill set and what she's able to bring to the table, but the one thing that she is always bringing to the table is her strength and her ability to bully her opponents. With that said, I was very impressed with how Loma was able to handle herself in those situations where Albu was trying to out-grapple her and out-strengthen her and out-muscle her. She held her own. She made her pay inside the clinch. So I don't think that Angela Hill is going to have too big of a strength advantage here. I'm interested to see how much Angela Hill goes towards the grappling here. I believe in Loma's ground game enough to be able to get back to the feet and stay out of bad positions. I think she has decent submission defense as well. But I think that if you're going to give me plus 170 on a fight that should play out relatively close, I'm going to go with the underdog, and especially an underdog that has a high ceiling, I believe, for Loma Lookboonmee. So, I think there is a little bit of recency bias in this fight too with Angela Hill. She just came off that demolishment of Hannah Cifers. She landed a lot of big elbows from that top position when she gained full mount. But I think people are overlooking Loma here just due to the fact that Angela Hill just looked beastly in her last fight. So I'm more than happy to take the plus 170 shot here. I expect her tie to really play off or play well in this fight. I expect her to, land good leg kicks, kind of stand her ground when Angela Hill is closing the distance, since she likes to move a lot, and she's going to be able to land on Angela Hill in those instances. I can't wait to see them clinch up, because I can't wait to see who's able to ring off more knees or who's going to be able to impose the will more in that situation. I'm giving the edge to Loma, and again, plus 170, a little bit criminal. It should be a little bit closer, in my opinion. It should be like at most plus 130 for Loma Lookboonmee. So I like the edge that I have here at plus 170 for Loma, and that's going to be my pick. I'm going to take her by decision. I think she just, out clinches and outworks Angela Hill for the majority of this fight, landing the bigger and heavier shots too, and mixing in takedowns every now and then as well. So she's going to have to be a little bit careful of when she does have Angela Hill on the ground, because we've seen Angela Hill work on her jiu-jitsu. But again, I do trust Loma's submission D, and I think she's going to be well prepared for this fight if she, finds herself in any sort of trouble. So again, Loma Lookboonmee by decision. Next up is Kai Kara-France versus Tyson Nam. This is another fight that I was kind of considering as a dog of the night play. Looking into it a little bit further, it's going to be a little bit interesting. So let's start off with Kai Kara-France. He's coming off a loss to Brandon Moreno in a fight where, a lot of guys from City Kickboxing were on that card, not to mention Alexander Volkanovski, who later on in that card went on to win the featherweight title. But this was a fight where, Brandon Moreno really showed up. Moreno went into that fight, I believe, as a plus 200 underdog. Am I not? Yeah, Kai Kara-France was minus 165 as the favorite. So Brandon Moreno was probably around minus 130 or plus 130, plus 140. With that said, Moreno, really showed off his striking. And Kai Kara-France kind of really didn't have an answer for it. Kai really likes to close the distance, likes to land his shots, get in and out. He throws bombs. He has a lot of power. I believe on that Ultimate Fighter flyweights series where it was just all the flyweights, he was the only one with a KO finish on that. So that is something to say. He's one of the few featherweights that can actually go out there one of the few flyweights that can actually go out there and put somebody's lights out. I think the line is a little criminal here, though. Minus, it's slowly getting better, though. So minus 255 for Kai Kara-France, plus 215 for Tyson M. I don't think a lot of people are too educated on Tyson M. If he has over, 29 fights. This is going to be his 30th fight coming in. He has wins over Ali Bagotinov. He burst onto the scene with the win over Eduardo Dantas, who was actually the Bellator MMA champ at that time. And that's where people started to really get to know him. But he's a well-versed striker. In the fight against Sergio Pettis, it seemed like he was a little bit confused and didn't really know how to, attack Sergio Pettis. The one thing I saw in that fight is that he only threw really single shots. If he's going to beat Kai Kara-France, he's going to have to throw like more than 2 or 3 shots at a time. And that's how Brandon Moreno was able to get the victory too. He threw a bunch of shots and then he threw a kick at the end of it as well to keep Kai Kara-France on the edge of his punches and guessing in terms of what's coming up next. Tyson Nam goes in there and tries to single shot his way to a victory. It's not going to happen. Kai Kara-France will come with the 2-3 shots, the heavy shots. He's going to land on Tyson Nam too, and he might have a little bit of a reach disadvantage to deal with. But I think that Kai will be able to close that distance without much issue. I like Tyson Nam at the plus 250, plus 275-ish range, which he was at like a little bit earlier. But now that the line is closing a little bit, I'm not liking it so much. I think Nam has the veteran experience and the chops to actually go out there and jab Kai Kara-France's face off and add a couple punches, after that jab to get the victory. But I'm actually going to go with Kai here. I think that Tyson Nam is just going to get lulled too much into that one punch and one and done type of shot and not really land on Kai, whereas Kai's going to be able to, blitz, ring off his 2-3 shots, hurt Tyson Nam. I could see him even finishing Tyson Nam later in the fight if I'm not mistaken. Tyson hasn't been finished in a long time. Last time it was against Marlon Moraes way back in 2013. So it's going to be 7 years since he's been finished. I like Kai. Not enough to bet him, not even enough to parlay him if I'm being honest, but I am going to lean him. The line should be much closer, so if you are trying to look for value here, I think Tyson Nam is the bet. However, I'm truly picking Kai Kara-France to win this fight with his striking, faster hands in my opinion too, and then obviously the more power. All right, next up we got Kenan Song against Callan Potter. Callan Potter coming into this fight with a victory over Maki Pitolo, who fights earlier in the card, and I talked about that fight a little bit. He grinded that fight out. He really, really went in there, ate a lot of big shots from Pitolo, was able to keep his chin in it, and then was able to really, get his hands on Pitolo, get him to the ground and grind him out. Daniel Kelly in his corner was yelling his ear off, saying that this is what you got to do to win the fight, grind him out, get the takedown as soon as possible. And he was able to do it, especially in that third round, and take over from there. In this fight against Kenan Song, he's fighting another heavy power puncher, a guy that's going to be slightly bigger than him too. Kenan Song is one of the bigger fighters in this division. Let me get the actual metrics on him. 6 foot with a 71.5-inch reach, whereas, oh wow, it actually looks like Callan Potter is going to be the bigger fighter here. I don't know why it looks like Kenan Song is so much bigger, but listed here is 6'1" and 72-inch reach for Callan Potter. So I might be wrong, I guess, on the height discrepancy there. But I think that Kenan Song is the more crisper puncher, the crisper striker, the stronger fighter as well, but we have seen him get taken down with relative ease with some of the guys. In his fight against Darren Krantz, he did end up winning that fight. That was a close fight, but it really came down to that last 5 minutes, and it seemed like Kenan Song had a little bit more in the gas tank to give than Darren Krantz. I like Callan Potter's cardio a little bit better. So if this fight does get into the third round, we could see Callan Potter getting this fight to the ground and kind of grinding it out that way. his chin's going to have to hold up for him here because he is going to get cracked by Kenan. I kind of see it either as like a first round KO for Kenan or a 3-round grind out decision for Callan Potter. Tough fight for me to bet. What are we at? Minus 200 for Kenan Song, plus 170 for Callan Potter. I think that line's a little bit too wide. The value currently, in my opinion, is on Callan Potter. Not the most talented guy out there, but is the type of guy that brings his lunch pail and just gets the job done. So Kenan Song is nothing special in my opinion. Again, just a crisp striker, has the ability to put you out in the first round. However, if he's not able to do that, it's going to be tough for him to pull out the victory against a tough, gritty out like Callan Potter here. So I'd stay away from Kenan Song, honestly, as a favorite. But I'd also stay away from Callan Potter as a dog. Personally, it's a pass for me. I'm going to go with Potter by decision, especially with this being closer to home for him, too. China's not too far either for Kenan Song. Then again, I think Kenan Song is actually fighting out of... he's been doing his camps. Let me just confirm this. He's been doing his camps a little bit in the U.S. Oh, no, he's actually over in Thailand, if I'm not mistaken. Let me confirm this. I don't want to be talking out of my ass. What's this? All right, he's been doing his camps out of Thailand, it seems. So not too far for him to travel either. But again, I do like Kenan Song here. Callan Potter to win by decision, but it is a pass for me altogether. Next up, we got Jake Matthews versus Emil Meek. Jake Matthews currently sitting at minus 225, plus 185 on Emil Meek. Emil Meek, it's been a while since we've seen him in the cage. The last time he fought was July of 2018, where he lost a unanimous decision to Bartosz Fabinski. Unlucky for him, he fought two grapple-heavy fighters in Kamaru Usman and Bartosz Fabinski back-to-back, all within the span of 6 months. And, you got to give it to the guy. You're going up against tough outs. Kamaru Usman, obviously the champion now, but Bartosz Fabinski, probably doesn't have the best striking out there, but has such an imposing style with his grappling that it makes it hard for anybody to pull off a victory against him. And now here he is against Jake Matthews, a guy who could probably out-grapple him as well. Emil Meek throws a lot of heat. His fight against Jordan Meehan, he cracked him a lot in that fight and then eventually was able to ride him out in the second and third rounds due to Meehan's lack of ability to get up. But with Jake Matthews here, I expect Jake Matthews to go in here and wrestle, because if he tries to stand with Meek, he's going to get hit. We've seen Matthews get hit in his fight against Rostam Akman. He was able to it was a pretty pedestrian fight, actually, but he was able to outpoint him there. But with Meek, it's going to be that first 2 or 3 minutes is going to be tough for Jake Matthews to really close the distance without eating too much heavy shots and then getting this fight to the ground. Minus 225, not really keen on betting Jake Matthews there, especially with the 2 years that Emil Meek has been off. Who knows how much of an improved self that we'll see of Emil Meek in that amount of time. But I'm not really keen on finding out in terms of betting him. I'm always a little bit hesitant in terms of betting guys that are coming off as such a heavy layoff, but then betting against them too. It's kind of rough for me too. But Jake Matthews always improving, growing into his body more. Quick hands. I like his ability to mix it up with his takedowns. I don't think it will be too hard for him to take Emil down. But again, like I said, it's going to be tough for him closing that distance without getting cracked with something. So we know that Emil Meek hits really hard, but that's kind of his saving grace. If he's able to out-grapple you, which he was able to do against Jordan Meehan, he probably has a good chance of winning the fights. But in this fight against Jake Matthews, I think he's going to be a little bit outdone with his grappling. Matthews is just going to have the advantage there. And then after the second and third round, I think it's going to be a lot easier for Jake Matthews to go out there, get the takedowns, and grind out Emil Meek here. A part of me is actually hoping that we see Emil Meek 2.0 here. 2-year layoff, close to 2-year layoff. New hairstyle. I think he's trimmed off that crazy mohawk that he has too. So it'd be cool to see what kind of Emil Meek we get here. But tough fight for Jake Matthews. Not willing to lay the minus 225, but I am going to take him to win by decision. Next up, we got Jalin Turner versus Joshua Culibao. Culibao actually is stepping in pretty early on late notice, I believe, for Jamie Malarkey, who was supposed to be, Jamie Malarkey, who was supposed to fight Jalin Turner. Let's start off with Jalin Turner real quick. He had a fight, his last fight was against Matt Frevola, where Frevola was able to really grapple and impose his will there. Jalin Turner landed a lot of beautiful knees, and that's something that you really have to look out for a guy that's 6'3", fighting at 155 pounds. Anytime you close the distance, a lot of guys like to close the distance with a winging right hook, and when you do throw that ringing right hook, you leave your face open, you leave your chin open, and you dip it. But when you dip it against a guy like Jalin Turner, you're going to be meeting a knee more than likely. So Culibao is going to have to really be careful in terms of that. The tape that's out there on Culibao is very scarce. I was only able to get a couple of his fights, especially this one against Josh Payne, which was his last one. But you really got to question the level of competition that he's been fighting. I think the only guy out there that he has fought with a respectable record is Rodolfo Marquez, 25-10-1 going into that fight. But the only tape that I can really get on it is the KO finish at the end where he head kicks him and then follows up with punches. Not sure how the rest of that fight went. Not even sure how long that fight went due to the fact that Tapology doesn't even have a round, time, or method. They have the method, which is head kick and punches, but no time and no round. So no idea how the rest of that fight went. All we saw was the KO. I believe they tried to do that with Justin Tafa too. It was really scarce to find that the first round of one of Justin Tafa's fight was where he did not look good. They only give us the second round where he just goes out there and dusts a guy within 40 seconds or something. So maybe that's the same thing here with Joshua Culibao. No idea. All I can gather from what I've seen from his 2 amateur or pro fights that I have available, as well as a couple of his amateur fights too, is he throws heavy, has decent leg kicks, likes to take guys down, but mainly likes to strike and try to land the bomb. But it's so tough to bet on this fight. What are the odds right now? -210 Jalin Turner, +175 for Culibao. For all we know, Culibao could go out there, close the distance, and knock out Jalin Turner. We've seen Jalin Turner's chin be tested in the past. Matt Frevola had a lot of success in terms of landing on his chin and hurting him too. So this fight's a pass for me in terms of, we just don't know the most about Culibao, and he could go out there and completely stun everybody. I love the talent that Jalin Turner has. He still has to really put it together. His only losses in the UFC right now are to Vicente Luque and Matt Frevola, who aren't the worst names out there. Frevola is a little bit more mid-tier, so it was kind of unfortunate to see him get the loss there. But if he really puts it together, he should be able to go out there and have a better career than a guy who has the record of 8-5. Great striking, is able to poke guys away, has finished a ton of guys in the past too. So I think this fight against Culibao should be exciting, but I'm not confident in betting either side here. What does the fight doesn't go to decision look like? -170. That's actually not too bad. Still not willing to pay that, to be honest. So I'm going to pass on that fight. I am going to take Turner by first round KO. I just don't think I think that Culibao won't be ready for the length that Jalin Turner is going to be able to bring into this. I don't know how many training partners he really has to train with and emulate a guy that has a style and size and frame of a Jalin Turner. So I'm taking Jalin Turner by finish first round. Probably I'm going to call it a knee. It's going to be a Culibao trying to close the distance with a power shot, and he eats a knee up the middle from Jalin Turner and goes night. So I'm taking Jalin Turner first round KO. Next up, we got Zubaira Tukhugov versus Kevin Aguilar. This is a fun fight. Both guys love to strike. Zubaira Tukhugov has a takedown in his back pocket if he wants to. Kevin Aguilar coming off a loss to Dan Ige in a fight where Ige was actually able to outstrike him, outpace him, which was kind of weird. I believe I had Aguilar in that fight as well in terms of a bet, and then I bet against him in the Enrique Barzola fight because I believe Barzola was going to be able to get the fight to the ground and hang on the feet. However, Aguilar did a great job in terms of keeping the fight on the feet and then landed a lot of heavy shots. This fight is going to be interesting. So it's going to come down to, I believe, Zubaira having to mix it up a little bit more. He's going to have to land his shots and then go in for a takedown and try to ride out Kevin Aguilar. We've seen decent takedown defense from Kevin Aguilar, so if Zubaira is working too hard for it, he might gas himself out and then have to eat the punches of Kevin Aguilar. Tough fight to call, like very, very tough fight to call. And rightfully so. It is an even fight. I don't know which way to go here. In that last fight for Zubaira, we saw him really push to his limits against Leon Murphy. Leon Murphy or Lerone Murphy? Lerone Murphy. I don't know why I said Leon Murphy. Either way, Lerone Murphy really pushed him there. We saw him really gassing in that last round. He's really pushing to get those takedowns against Murphy. Murphy was just out-muscling him at that point. Kevin Aguilar, though, I think he's going to make him pay more on the feet if he starts to gas. I think if Zubaira tries to go for those desperation takedowns, Kevin Aguilar will be able to easily stuff them and then make him pay on the feet too. We've seen Kevin Aguilar go the distance. We've seen him maintain his cardio as well as his pace and his output. So, very tough fight. I will go with Zubaira, though. I think that his takedowns in the first 2 rounds will be the difference. I don't know if Kevin Aguilar will be able to put Zubaira out. So I will go with Zubaira. I think he is going to land those takedowns in the first 2 rounds. It might be a little hard in the get-go, but I think that he will probably strike for the first 3 or so minutes and then mix in the takedown to kind of have Kevin Aguilar, thinking one way and then mixing it up and then being successful with the takedown. So his double leg in terms of off of his striking is probably his best move. And I think that, as good as we've seen Kevin Aguilar's takedown defense in the Enrique Barzola fight, I think Zubaira sets it up way better and has a better wrestling pedigree than Barzola as well. So I'm going with Zubaira here. And the dude needs to fight a little bit more often. He's only had 2 fights since 2016. Since 2016, he's only had 1 fight against Lerone Murphy, which was back at UFC 242. So it's going to be nice to see him hopefully get a little bit more in routine, because I think he could be a little bit of a force in that division of 145. So I'm taking Tukhugov by decision. Very close fight. It's going to be a pass for me overall, but it's lined perfectly at -110. Next up, we got Magomed Mustafaev versus Brad Riddell, which is probably going to be fight of the night. This is a very, very fun fight. Both guys are great strikers, hold a lot of power in their hands. Let's start off with Magomed Mustafaev, who went out there and spinning back kicked and followed up with punches against Rafael Fiziev in a fight that, they were kind of feeling each other out. Mustafaev goes out there and starts throwing spinning shit, and then just pretty much breaks into his rhythm, and then bang, hits a beautiful shot on Fiziev and puts him out. His only loss, or at least his only UFC loss, has come to Kevin Lee, which was a tough fight for him. Kevin Lee, obviously a much more dominant grappler, and was able to get his rear naked choke finish in that fight. But this Brad Riddell fight, I'd be surprised if either guy goes for a takedown. I think they both want to show off their striking. I think Brad Riddell is going to be the faster striker here, but we have seen his chin get cracked in that Jamie Mullarkey fight, and the fact that he is hittable makes it a little bit concerning. Mustafaev has a ton of power in all of his strikes. I'm just interested in seeing if Brad Riddell is going to be able to stay away from that. If he's able to stick behind his 1-2, a couple of leg kicks, I just think it's going to be tough for him to anticipate what Mustafaev is going to be throwing at him. With the consistent spinning shit that he likes to throw, and the ability for him to close the range as quickly as he did. It's concerning that Mullarkey was able to land as often as he did on Riddell. So it's going to be, I think it's almost a no-brainer that Mustafaev is going to be able to land those two. -140 from Mustafaev is not a bad line, considering how hittable we've seen Riddell in the past. So I like Mustafaev. It seems like even though he had such a long layoff, even though it seemed like he had such a long layoff after that Kevin Lee fight, and only got into the cage for a minute and a half against Fiziev, it's going to be very easy for him to get back into the groove, land on Brad Riddell. And that kind of hurts to say. I'm a big Brad Riddell fan. The guy's amazing kickboxing and Muay Thai. Very quick, too. But I just believe that the power is going to be the difference here, because it will be a striking battle. I would be very surprised if Brad Riddell is the one going for takedowns here. And realistically, he probably should be the one going for takedowns, to kind of, wear out Magomed a little bit more, and then maybe pull off his striking a little bit more in the second and third rounds. I just don't see it, though. I think that Magomed is just going to land on him, put him out. Unfortunately, I love Brad Riddell. I'm going to keep saying it. I think he's highly talented. I think he has the chops to be a contender. However, his chin is going to fail him here. And the fact that we saw a little bit of it in his fight against Jamie Malarkey, it's hard to see how Magomed doesn't land on him, crack that chin, and then eventually get a finish. So I'm going to take Magomed by first round KO, actually. I think it's going to be a chaos while it lasts. But I think it's going to be very fun, and we still get a Magomed first round KO. So I like Magomed at minus 140. Not that mad at that, but not making it a bet myself. All right, next up we got Marcos Rogerio de Lima against Ben Sosoli. It's going to be a little bit of a sloppy fight. It's either going to be a first round KO or it's going to be a 3-round just sloppy slugfest. I don't know which way to lean either way. Minus 150 for de Lima, plus 130 for Ben Sosoli. De Lima used to fight at 205, which is crazy. The guy looks thicker than a motherfucking Snickers. The guy is huge. And he throws with a lot of heat too. I think the funniest part of the UFC calendar last year was the fact that the first shot that he landed on Stefan Struve in their fight, he pretty much dropped him. Like literally the first shot. As whoever the commentator was reading the short colors for each guy or what corner they're in, Stefan Struve goes down. That just shows right off the bat how much power he has in his hands. He's a very good kicker too. Has a lot of power in his kicks. From what I heard, he's been working with Rodolfo Vieira on his jiu-jitsu. Doesn't seem to have worked out well against Stefan Struve. The guy seems to have a gas tank for one round. After one round, it's going to be tough for him to really put it together. Unless he grinds you out like he did against Adam Wizardcheck by just staying on top, it's going to be tough for him to really, stay in the standing position and outstrike Ben Sosoli over 3 rounds in 15 minutes. Ben Sosoli, I believe, is going to have the better hands here. I think he's the better boxer. I think he's a little bit more crisp. He's going to be slightly quicker. De Lima will have the power advantage here, but I think that Sosoli will be the quicker fighter here. However, I still think that Sosoli gets cracked. Sosoli has a decent chin on him. He ate a lot of bombs. He ate decent bombs from Greg Hardy, but the fact that he got pretty much decisioned by Greg Hardy is very concerning. Greg Hardy went out there and put on a 15-minute clinic of just sticking and moving, landing a couple good shots, but then staying out of the range of any tough problems. But it's tough for me to see how Marcos Rogerio de Lima goes out there and does the same. I'm going to go with the dog here. I think that Ben Sosoli, stays away from the heavy shots of de Lima, chips away at him, and then probably gets the victory in the second round by TKO. He's going to have more in the gas tank at that point. He's gone the distance a couple more times than de Lima has. And again, if de Lima is not able to land that bomb, it's going to be tough for him to get the victory here. He's going to have to stay consistent with that leg kick if he wants to slow down Sosoli and try to catch him with those overhand hooks that he likes to throw. But I like Sosoli here. Not enough to play him at the dog odds though. But I think he's going to take this away with the second round TKO by mixing his hands in together. He's going to have to eat some shots. As long as his chin continues to hold up, he should be okay. And then second round, I think he puts away de Lima with a TKO. All right, next up, we got more than likely my lock of the night play. I'm just going to be completely honest with you guys. We got Yan Xiaonan against Karolina Kovacevic. Yan currently around the minus 250-ish range, minus 240 on Pinnacle, which is one of the main books that I use. I think that with the name value of Karolina Kovacevic, we're going to see a little bit of line movement, which is why I'm going to wait and see if I can at least get maybe a minus 215, minus 220 on Yan. But I'm more than happy to pay the juice on her in this fight. Before I continue to shit on Karolina Kovacevic, I want to give her a round of applause for continuing to take the highest level of competition, even though she's on a 3-fight losing streak. She lost to Jessica Andrade, followed by Michelle Waterson, followed by Alexa Grasso. And now she's even taken I think she's taken, this is the second toughest fight out of those 4 women, and she's taking it coming off of 3 straight losses. All props to her. I don't know what kind of game plan she's going to be coming into here with, but everything that I've seen in all of her 3 fights lends it right into Xiaonan Yan's game. And that's the heavy striking, the combinations, the fact that whenever Yan throws, it's never really one shot. Like very rarely will you see her throw a jab and then not follow it up with something. And that's what sets her apart from most of her opponents. She goes in there and then she throws 3 or 4 strikes back to back to back, all with power. And that's what makes these women, so scared to go out there and strike with Yan. She did it to Angela Hill. She was close to getting finished by Angela Hill. Let's not be mistaken. End of the first round, Hill had a very tight triangle set up. Yan got saved by the bell. Who knows how that would have went? If that fight went a little bit longer, 10 to 15 seconds longer. But I don't think that we're going to see Karolina Kovacevic go out there and submit Yan or lock her up in a triangle or anything like that. I think Yan's just going to be too strong, too powerful. Kovacevic, she holds her chin up. She just doesn't throw the most behind her shots, so it's going to be hard for me to see how Yan is going to be stifled by anything that Karolina is throwing at her. I think Karolina's best shot here is to try to mix in some takedowns and try to get this fight to the ground. However, I just don't think she has the power or technique to be able to get Yan down there. I think if this gets into the clinch position, we'll see Yan rip knees to the body. We'll see her, rip some elbows. She loves to throw elbows too. She loves to throw some spinning stuff as well. But I just love her tenacity, her viciousness, her raw aggression whenever Yan throws shots. It's all with bad intentions, and that's always gonna hurt a girl like Karolina Kovacevic, who I don't believe has much in return. It's tough for me to see a scenario where Karolina actually pulls this one out. I kind of laid it out a little bit earlier in terms of she's going to have to mix in the takedowns and try to get this fight to the ground, but I don't think she's going to be successful. That takedown that Hill landed on Yan was a little weird. It was like a change of momentum trip, but I don't think that Karolina is really capable of doing something like that. So I think that Yan is going to go out there, strike her face off. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes out there and gets a finish. You know what I mean? She is going to land at will on Karolina, and she's throwing heat. So I think that she could crack Karolina and put her down. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to take Xiaonan Yan by 3rd round TKO. I think she just continues to overwhelm Karolina. Karolina eventually breaks, and we get Yan come out on the other side with the victory. More often than not, you don't really see fighters who are on as much of a winning streak as Yan is. She's 4-0 right now in the UFC, whereas Karolina is coming off of 3 straight losses. This is all name value. This is all the passing of the torch. Karolina is on her way out. She will probably more than likely retire after this fight. She's obviously going to get cut. This is 4 straight losses. If you want to give her a little bit of slack, you got to be like, all right, UFC, she always went out there and fought the best of the best. Give her another shot. You know what I mean? I just don't see that, though. I think that it's going to be very demoralizing for her to get this 4th loss in a row, I should say. But she should have nothing to hold her head down about. Yan is a future contender in my opinion. As long as Zhang is able to hold on to the title, we might get some China on China crime here. I'm very excited for the potential of that fight. But yeah, there's nothing that I really see in terms of Karolina giving to Yan that's going to make her get this victory. So I got Yan, clear, easy victory here. Again, I'm going out with a limp and saying that she's going to get a 3rd round TKO, but she hasn't had a finish since she beat So Hee Lim way back in 2016 via punches, but all of her other fights have been pretty much decision victories where she's just completely outstriking her opponents. So I'm going to say 3rd round TKO just due to the lack of striking defense that we see from Karolina Kovacevic. All right, co-main event time. Jimmy Crute versus the Lord, Michal Oleksiejczuk. Let's start off with Jimmy Crute, who's coming off a loss to Misha Cirkunov last time around. Let's just quickly look at the odds. Minus 135 for Michal, plus 115 for Jimmy Crute. So Jimmy Crute, decent fighter overall. Had the chops to go out there and beat guys like Chris Birchler, Paul Craig, and Sam Alvey. The Sam Alvey one, I'll say, is a little bit of a early stoppage. Alvey did get hurt earlier prior to the finish and then, just got pounded out. Was up immediately, so I'm not really giving too much credit to Jimmy Crute's power. Misha Cirkunov went out there, took him down a couple times, and then eventually pulled off the Peruvian necktie. And if you guys watch that fight back, Misha actually tried the Peruvian necktie a little bit earlier before he got the finish. So you could see it's something that he was fishing for. Maybe not something that a lot of guys are expecting, especially a guy at Jimmy Crute's level. I'm not shitting on Crute, but the fact that Misha Cirkunov has been grappling almost his entire life, to pull that out of his back pocket was kind of fun to see because we don't really see Peruvian neckties really pulled off in the UFC. But this fight, I expect it mainly to take place on the feet. Both guys love to slug. Both guys are heavy punchers. But I think that the forward pressure of Mikhail is going to be the difference maker here. Jimmy Crute, not the most active striker, likes to throw every now and then. The Chris Birchler fight was throwing enough to get by. The Sam Alvey fight, he was just kind of waiting for Sam Alvey. But this Mikhail guy, it's going to be tough. He's going to be in your face. He's going to be ripping shots to the body often. And it's all going to come down to his cardio, in my opinion. I went lock of the night deep on Mikhail against OSP, which was his last fight, and then he goes out there and gets fucking Von Flue choked in the second round. I think the difference in that fight was the fact that, Mikhail was really dealing with the grappling and the strength of OSP, which was pretty evident that he was the stronger fighter. Mikhail was having a lot of success in that first round, continuously going to the body of OSP, seemingly, draining OSP of his cardio, but then OSP comes out in that second round, gets the takedown, and then eventually gets that Von Flue choke. I don't think we're going to see Jimmy really try to pull that off. I think Mikhail will be okay if Crute decides to take this fight to the ground. I think he'll be able to get back up. But as long as his cardio stays in check, and he, is able to portion it out over 15 minutes, he should go out there and strike Jimmy Crute's face off. Just being honest. The odds -135. It's a little bit tempting if I'm being completely honest here. Mikhail still has a lot of potential, and I think a lot of people are starting to write him off because he got Von Prude. I must say. Cut the guy a little bit of slack. He went out there thinking that he's going to put out OSP in that first round. He wasn't able to. He's going to have, as long as he knows that he's going to go in for a tough, long fight against Jimmy Crute, he should be okay and should be able to pace himself to outstrike him for 15 minutes. He has the better body work. He has the better pace. He has a pretty good chin from what I've seen. The complete demolishment that he put on Antigulov was a thing of beauty. I love watching that fight. 44 seconds of just complete brilliance on his side. So as long as he knows he's not going to go out there and try to finish Jimmy Crute in the first round, this should be an easy Mikhail, probably decision victory, I'll say. I'll give it to Jimmy Crute. He is quite durable. He is quite, he is hittable. He's durable. He has a good chin on him. But I think that Mikhail is going to be the one that goes out there and completely boxes his face off. I don't think we've really ever seen somebody that digs to the body as much as Mikhail. It's a thing of beauty, like truly. Like everybody likes to go out there and headhunt and try to put guys away and have these highlight reel KOs. But Mikhail is just going out there and just fucking just murking people to the body. And it takes so much out of a fighter whenever they're continuously getting hit to the body. And it's even more discouraging when this guy continuously walks you down. So I'm still high on Mikhail. I'm gonna write off that OSP loss. I'm still high on him. Not 100% sure if I'll actually play him here, but I'm definitely thinking that he's going to be the one to win. I'm going to take him by decision. I just don't think that Jimmy Crute has the chops to get the victory here. He's going to have to try to wrestle. That is his only path to victory here. He's going to have to try to wrestle if he wants to beat Mikhail. Don't see it happening though. He might be successful the first couple times, but after that, I think Mikhail is going to get back up and then continuously put the pressure on him and then make Jimmy wilt. So I'm taking Mikhail by decision, and we get to witness another beautiful striking display, especially body shots. Love that shit. Love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, main event time, Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker. This is going to be a fun fight. This is going to be a great fight. It could also be a boring one. Let's just be honest. If they both go out there and try to stare at each other and see who's going to if they want to try to counter each other, they could be staring at each other for 25 minutes. Nobody wants that. However, I think that Dan Hooker is not going to allow that to happen. So let's start off with Paul Felder first. The Mike Perry fight, I'm going to write that off a little bit. He broke his arm in the first round, and then still went at the full decision and won that fight. The James Vick one, I believe that's the fight that he actually punctured a lung in the first round and still went the full 3 rounds and beat James Vick. Amazing performance there. The main benefactor in that fight was his leg kicks or specifically his calf kicks. He rendered James Vick's calf pretty much useless after that first round, and it was very, very evident. And, with opening up that calf kick, he opened up a lot of his hands as well. Landed a lot of spinning elbows, a lot of strikes to the face. His hands look really good too. I think he's going to have the advantage here in terms of hands when it comes to him against Dan Hooker. And then obviously that Edson Barboza fight. Pretty close fight. I look back at the judges' scorecards and it was a little crazy. One judge had it all 3 rounds, Edson Barboza. One judge had it all 3 rounds, Paul Felder. And then one judge had it rounds 2 and 3 for Felder and then 1 for Barboza. I think that judge was the correct one, rounds 2 and 3 for Felder. We saw Barboza start to slow down a little bit, and Felder was able to get his shots off. And the funniest part about that was the fact that, once Edson Barboza took the fight to the ground, you think he's going to be the one that has the advantage. Paul Felder goes out there and starts elbowing this motherfucker's face up, like just cuts him up, has a pool of Edson Barboza's blood on his chest just from a couple of the elbows that he landed on him. It looked freaking weird and insane. Like, you'd never really see a guy, unless his name is Tony Ferguson, but you don't really ever see a guy land as much damage as Paul Felder did off his back there. So that was a clear Paul Felder round. And even after they got back up, I think he had the better of the exchanges too. So, he beats James Vick with leg kicks. He beats Edson Barboza by, pretty much out-grinding him, really taking it to him in the 3rd round too. Dan Hooker, on the flip side, goes out there and knocks James Vick out in the 1st round. It must have been weird for James Vick to go out there and fight somebody just as tall as him, and that's probably why he wasn't really able to get the range, which is why he was clipped on the chin, and which is why he was, eventually ground and pounded and lost via TKO there. Actually, I think he was pretty much out in that fight. The Edson Barboza fight for Dan Hooker. That was a tough one. Barboza ripping the leg kicks right off the bat. It will be intriguing for me to see Paul Felder take that same approach as Edson Barboza, because I think that might be his path to victory here. He may have the better hands, but he's going to have to establish his leg kicking game if he's going to be able to close the distance and let his hands go to work, which is where I believe he has the advantage. Dan Hooker himself has a great leg kick game too, though. The way he was able to piece up Al Iaquinta, pretty much render him useless as well too, making him fight from his secondary position, from the southpaw position, and not be able to land the best of his shots, was very helpful for Dan Hooker. It's going to be fun to see these guys go leg kick for leg kick if that's what it's going to come down to. Because, again, I truly believe that to overcome the reach disadvantage that Paul Felder is going to be at, he's going to have to kick early and often. He was able to get to James Vick early and often, and then establish that, for the rest of the fight. But I do think Dan Hooker has slightly better striking defense than a James Vick. I think it's going to be harder for Felder to reach Dan Hooker's face, especially with how well Dan Hooker moves. He uses his kicks a lot better to maintain the range. He uses his jab a lot better than James Vick to maintain the range. So it's hard for me to see how Felder continuously closes the distance without getting hit with a lot of good shots from Dan Hooker. One thing I like from Paul Felder is he likes this step-in left hook with his lead hand and then come over with the right hook. Beautiful combination there, but that's going to be really tough to land on a guy like Dan Hooker. I think Hooker lands beautiful elbows too. The clinch is going to be interesting too, because I don't know who really would have the advantage there. I got to give the ground game advantage a little bit to Dan Hooker. He has a couple more submissions on his record, as well as, just a little bit more of the seeking for the choke, and his long limbs obviously help him in those aspects as well. But I see this primarily taking place on the feet. And on the feet, I got to give it to the guy that has a little bit more range. And they both have the same amount of like I would place their striking roughly on the same level. Hand advantage to Paul Felder, kicking advantage to Dan Hooker, but then it comes down to establishing the range and maintaining that range, and you got to give that to Dan Hooker. Unless Paul Felder goes out there and renders Dan Hooker's calves useless as well, just as he did in the James Vick fight, I just don't see that happening though. I think that we see Dan Hooker go out there and start to establish his kicks, hurt Paul Felder earlier, but man, it's such a toss up. Like, it's minus 145 right now for Dan Hooker, plus 125 for Felder. If I were kind of, pressured into betting this fight, I would probably go with Hooker, if I'm being completely honest. Minus 140 is not too bad. But fuck, it's such a tough fight to call. I want to see Felder go out there and win. But considering everything that I've just laid out, you got to think that Dan Hooker has the advantage here. The odds obviously suggest that too. But as handicappers, our job is to go out there and poke holes in the favorite. But the holes that I've poked, I think aren't massive enough for Dan Hooker to fill to actually go out there and finish or actually beat a guy like Paul Felder. I think this fight is actually going to go the full 25, where we see Dan Hooker maintain the distance and then land decent shots. I could see him potentially pulling off a submission later in the fight. Neither guy has gone 5 rounds in the UFC, so this is going to be uncharted territory for them as well. Home field advantage for Dan Hooker. That's something that's got to be put out there. Paul Felder, I believe, has been in Auckland for at least 2 weeks before the fight now, so he's slowly getting acclimated, but it's got to be easy for Dan Hooker to just pretty much get up out of bed and he's pretty much at the fights. It's that definitely has to be taken into consideration too. And something that I'm going to throw out, when Jalin Paiva fought Kai Kara-France back in one of the fights that happened in, I believe it was New Zealand or Australia, Kai Kara-France won that, or should have lost that fight, but I believe he won that fight due to the crowd, pretty much reacting to every time he landed on Paiva. I think Paiva had the better exchanges there, and he should have won that fight. But due to I believe the bias that the crowd was having on the judges, you got to consider that to potentially be something here for Dan Hooker too. You can't rule it out. I know it seems like an amateurish type of thing to point out, but it's true, man. It's gonna have an effect. So. Not saying that's the main factor as to why I'm choosing Hooker, but I just think that Hooker is going to be able to, work the range the best, keep Felder on the outside, use his teeps very well too, use the front kick, and I think that he's going to pull out the victory via decision. Should be a fun fight, all 25 minutes of it, but I'm going with Hooker to win by decision. All right, that's a wrap. This feels like it was a long fucking episode, but we've gotten through it all. So just to recap, Dog of the Night play already 1.2 units at plus 174 on Loma Lookboonmee, and then more than likely going to be locking up 5 units on Xiao Nanyan, hoping to get minus 210, minus 220-ish even. I'll try to wait it out as best as I can and hope that people see that Karolina Kowalkiewicz name and be like, oh, going to jump on her just because I know her. Let's hope that's what it is. All right. Make sure you guys check out Tape Index. And I'll see you guys next week for... What the fuck is next week? Let's see. What is the next event? UFC Norfolk, which is headlined by a vacant flyweight title fight between Davison Figueiredo and Joseph Benavidez. That's a fight I can't wait to dig into because I'm fans of both guys. Massive fans of both guys. And believe both of them deserve a title. Maybe Benavidez a little bit more than Davison. But this might not be the first time that these guys fight each other. So... we could definitely see a trilogy going down with these guys if they stick around in that division. So, thanks for watching. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know how you guys did last week. Let me know what you guys are picking this week. And let's try to make some fucking money this weekend. See you guys next week.